Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, you wake up on a Saturday morning and you say to yourself, I hope that at least today the government can leave me alone. And I woke up in a good mood, better mood than normal. I had a decent night's sleep. And then I go to my Twitter feed and see a story that will enrage you. It will enrage the most docile, peaceful Canadian. The story that's going around now, we're still a little bit in a fog of war, but I double-checked on numerous sources, numerous outlets, and it seems that the essential facts are out there. A guy named Mark and Danny, his wife, Longo, who had a rescue squirrel and a rescue raccoon. They've had the squirrel for 7 years now. The squirrel's name was Peanut. This is in New York State. They founded a not-for-profit animal rescue in New York State. They had their squirrel and raccoon seized by the state. They were raided by the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, something along those lines, the New York DEC. Raided on the basis of a warrant that was signed off on by a judge, allegedly. I have not been able to procure the court documents yet. They were raided because they were reported, apparently, as being a vector for rabies. A vector, for those of you who haven't read the Quarantine Act, means a source of contagion of rabies. Their home, a vector of rabies. So they get raided after a judge signs off on a warrant and the NYDEC raids their home. And apparently in seizing the squirrel bites one of the agents on the hand. And for a while it was unknown what the fate of the squirrel and the raccoon was. And now apparently the fate is not unknown. They were euthanized. They euthanized the man's squirrel and the raccoon in order, allegedly, from what I've understood now from multiple sources, to test for rabies because it was a vector for rabies, allegedly, and the squirrel bit one of the agents on the hand. I happen to know this from personal experience because for those of you who have known me, we're nearing now 10-year anniversary of my Squirrel Steals GoPro, carries it up a tree and drops it. That was the first viral video I ever made. And then I made a bunch of videos with squirrels stealing GoPros, taking them up the trees, running through branches. Squirrels, I'm not trying to be funny here. They're awesome, cute, beautiful animals. And raccoons are awesome, cute, beautiful animals. I knew a vet up in Canada who had a raccoon. He had two of them as pets. There are people who have raccoons as pets. They have gatherings. What you have coming out of New York State is the illustration of an authoritarian regime gone crazy, run amok. Where you could have, this is essentially a form of swatting. You have jackasses on the internet filing alleged anonymous complaints, by all accounts, at what is known now. Getting the government involved, and the government, once it sinks its frickin' claws into your private affairs, they will come in and destroy everything. You have these agents coming in to seize. The squirrel was deliciously cute, fat, healthy. I'm not trying to shame the squirrel. It was a very happy squirrel in clearly a loving rescue home. And some people will say, well, you shouldn't have squirrels in your house anyway. First of all, Karen, leave me alone. You wake up in the morning, and like they said in that famous monologue on Network, I just want to be left alone from the government, and they don't even let you do that. They come in and they literally murder your pets. And then the justification is that we need to test it for rabies because it bit one of the agents and it was alleged to be a vector for rabies. I know this is a matter of fact. There has never been a case of rabies transmitted to a human from a squirrel. I know this is a matter of fact because I looked into it after many of the videos. Every time I got my GoPro back and it had squirrel saliva on it, I'm like, I'm going to get rabies. And I look it up online and my vet who owned the raccoon, I'm fairly certain, told me also, squirrels don't carry rabies. They live during the day. They don't come out at night. They don't coexist at the same time as the mammals that are rabies vectors, such as bats. And so squirrels don't carry rabies to begin with, and there's never been a documented case of a human contracting rabies from a squirrel. From a raccoon, maybe. But this raccoon had been in the guy's home for years. These were healthy, loved animals. And you get a government apparatus coming in, just turning off all good common sense. Or who knows, maybe carrying out some sort of political vengeance. And they come in and they seize his animals and they murder them. And the internet's on fire, as it should be. This is how John Wick got started. I'm not trying to be funny. This is how you drive good, peaceful people to break and do bad things. You come in and you murder their animals. You come in and you think that you own their house. I saw the interview that Mark Longo gave on TMZ. They said that they went into their house. He wasn't allowed to feed his horses for breakfast and lunch. They searched every nook and cranny of his house as if he's a drug-dealing criminal. And by the way, from what I understand, it's not even as though he was alleged to be a drug-dealing criminal. The warrant that this judge signed off on, and we will get the court documents, on the basis that his home was a vector for rabies. And they treat this guy like a cartel criminal, although they don't even treat cartel criminals like that. Search his house. Apparently, he was kept out of his house for hours, and I have no doubt that the squirrel bit the hand of whatever agent seized that squirrel. I'm sure they were very delicate with it. I'm sure they were very understanding with it. I have no doubt it bit the agent's hand. And then they kill it because they got to make sure, for the safety of the agent, that the squirrel doesn't have rabies. Bullshit! This is insanity. New York State is a freaking hellhole. It's a communist hellhole. We've seen it at the court level in what they've done to Trump. It is a hellhole where the government thinks it can come into your house and murder your pets. This is Kathy Hochul's New York State. This is beyond New York State. This is a personification of the evil of big government. A government that does not respond to anything, that does not check itself in balance, that is not scared of the people, but rather wants the people to be scared of the government. I think it was George Washington who said, when the government fears the people, you have democracy. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. This is a Saturday morning bombshell of a story of when government goes awry, or in the case of modern times, when the government does what the government does. They think they own you. They think they can go into your house. Kamala Harris said it in that video. Just because you own a gun doesn't mean we're not going to come into your house and make sure that you're dealing with it safely. We're going to come into your private abode because we're the government and we're not here to help right now. We're here to make sure that you're following our rules. And if you're not, we're going to kill your animals. I'm going to follow this story. I reached out to Mark Longo to see if he can come on and talk about it. I'm going to try to get the court documents and see what was alleged in here to even justify this in the first place. But you just want to wake up and have a nice day, have a nice breakfast. And then you read a story of the government killing someone's cute, fluffy squirrel that had amassed, I think, something like 1 million followers on Instagram. I saw the videos. This was a beautiful, beautiful creature. And they come in and they ruin everything. So this is Kathy Hochul's mess. The buck stops with the governor. This is emblematic of what the government has become. And everybody out there should understand the government is not your friend. The government is never going to be less corrupt than it was last year. It's never going to be less corrupt than it was decades ago. You think they stopped testing drugs on citizens? Oh, and they've gone all good and righteous and moral and you can trust them now? Horse crap. If you think that, you're an idiot. And this story should enrage everyone. Go put it on blast. The government killed Peanut the squirrel. The man used the squirrel and the raccoon to found a not-for-profit animal rescue. They were hurting nobody. They were making people happy. And the government comes in on an anonymous tip from a nasty person on the internet, apparently, seize and kill this man's beloved animals. There's a special place in hell for everyone who had a hand in any part of this awful story. That's it. That's it.